Hey, what is up YouTube? This is Platinum Point, and I'm here to bring you guys a Pokemon trading card game deck profile. Today we're going to be exploring one of my favorite decks in the current Pokemon rotation, Dragapult Pidgeot. We're going to be going over what the card interactions are, what the cards do, as well as my current card choices for this deck list. And I'm gonna add a little spice to this. This is actually gonna be post Stellar Crown, which hasn't yet been officially released and legal, but I want to showcase to you guys, for those who are wanting to play this game and are curious on what deck you want to pick up in the current metagame. This is one of the what Japan deems as one of the tier 1 decks. So stay tuned for an in-depth deck profile. The Ochi the Rock video, I am branching into Pokemon. Not really branching into, as I posted, for those who've been with me from day one of this channel's history, since day one of this channel's history, when I was originally a different name, I played Pokemon quite a bit, almost as much as Yu-Gi-Oh! And now that my locals had shifted the schedules around, they have actually shifted the schedules quite a long time ago, but not even more than ever. With the shifting of the schedules, I'm able to actually devote not a lot, but more time into playing more different games. So I wanted to showcase to you guys what I personally have been playing in the Pokemon trading card game. And the big reason I want to do this is because Pokemon is one of my favorite trading card games. It's one of my favorite franchises. I got into nerd and anime culture through Pokemon. So just wanted to showcase a game that's just as important to me as Weiss, and is a game that I consider equally as one of my main games that I play. So without further ado, let's get on to the deck profile. We're going to start off with the Pokemon. This is what happens when you play when you play TCGs, especially when you're doing videos. They're gonna fall off the table sometimes. So I actually got these sleeves from the World Championship that just happened in my state not too long ago. So we're gonna start off with the Pokemon. So with the basics. So basics are Pokemon that you can play at the early stages of the game. So for most Pokemon, it's usually the first stage. So for the first stage, we play 4 copies of the Dreepy. I play 4 because I want to be able to open it as often as I can, and with the ratios that I'm playing of the Dragapult line, I felt like 4 is just needed. And with the 4 Dreepy, I play 2 copies of Dracalope. And the reason why I'm only playing 2 copies in this deck, even though some builds play 3, is where I run into... There's going to be often times where I'll just straight up rare candy into the stage 2. So I honestly don't need multiples in my deck breaking my hand. So in this situation where I can evolve them, I just need just at least a minimum of 2, especially with the ability that it has, which is Recon Directive, which is I get to check the top card of my deck and check actually the top 2 cards of my deck, choose one and add it to my hand, and then put the other one to the bottom of my deck. So that's free. It's a free scry and a free just a free +1 that can activate every turn. That's why I kind of like it at 2, because during the early game when I'm trying to just dig for pieces, especially the next stage, this is just there just to help me get it there faster, which is the reason why I play 2 copies of this. Normally I'd usually play 1 copy of the stage 1, but since the stage 1 actually has a decent ability, I play 2 copies. And then the main attacker of the deck, I play 3 copies of the Dragapult EX. With this Pokemon, it has the attack Phantom Dive, which allows me to deal 200 to the active Pokemon, and then place 6 damage counters onto my opponent's bench in any way I like. So this allows me to soften up targets in order for me to get knockouts, and it's just overall just a really good attacker, and it just gets infinitely better post Stellar Crown because there's so many resources to help you speed up getting the energy required, because it requires 1 fire and 1 psychic in order to launch this attack. And with the meta being a little bit fast paced, and Stellar Crown giving us faster ways to get the energy acceleration, it's really propelled this deck into the tier 1. And in fact, in Japan, they rank this deck as one of the S tier decks, just because of the fact that Stellar Crown gave this deck a lot of resources to speed through the deck, and you can actually run this as a standalone deck. Prior to that, the only time most people played the Dragapult EX was in the Regidrago deck. And if you guys want to see a deck profile of that, I encourage you guys to check out Zapdos TCG's video on it, or even Tablemon's video on the Regidrago EX deck. I don't have that deck personally. I don't even like that deck, so that's why I might not even explain what that deck does. So we're gonna move this line right here, just so we can have room. And then continuing on, we play the Pidgeot line, which is 2 copies of Pidgey, and then 2 copies of the Pidgeot EX. Many of you guys might be wondering, how come I'm not playing Pidgeotto in the deck? If you guys are familiar with Pokemon TCG, there is an item called Rare Candy, which allows you to evolve your basic Pokemon into their stage 2 form and bypass their stage 1 evolution. So with this deck, your goal is to rush and evolve into this before even getting into your attacker, because this is your main utility card of the deck. And the reason why it's your main utility card is because of Pidgeot's effect, Quick Search. Once per turn during your turn, you can search your deck for any card and add it to your hand, but you can only activate 1 Quick Search per turn. So you shouldn't be fielding multiple Pidgeots, but you should at least have 1 on board and 1 on standby, just in case they knock out 1, just so you can immediately launch another one. Because this just allows you to simplify your matchup, because it allows you to search for your key cards that you need during that turn without having to draw into them, or just praying to draw into it. So we gotta play the Pidgeot, because for this deck, being able to just search out all your key pieces effectively for free every turn is just too stupid to pass up. In the Twilight Masquerade, they gave many decks a new line into dealing damage, and that's through the Dusk Noir line. So I'll explain about this lineup really quickly. So we play 2 copies of Duskull, and then 1 copy of the Dusclops and 1 copy of the Dusk Noir. So what the Dusclops does, and sometimes you just evolve the Duskull into the Dusclops in order to pick off some weak Pokemon. So what he does is Curse Blast. You knock this Pokemon out and then place 5 damage counters onto your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. And yeah, when you lose a Pokemon via knockout, your opponent takes a prize. But because you're able to put damage counters onto your opponent's Pokemon, you're able to soften them up in order for the Dragapult to easily just knock them out in 1 shot. So instead of just landing 2 attacks, having the Dusclops or even the Dusk Noir, which like the Dusclops knocks itself out, but you can put 13 damage counters onto one of your opponent's Pokemon, you're able to essentially knock out with the Duskull, like the Dusclops, the baby basics with 50 HP or less, and then with the Dusknoir, you're able to soften up large like 2-stage EXs that have usually about 300 HP. You can soften them up in order for the Dragapult to just in one shot knock it out. And then, especially since the Dragapult will just put an additional 6 counters, it will soften up that target. So what you're doing is basically taking advantage of the 6 counters that you place with the Dragapult, and the 5 to 13 damage counters that you can place on the Dusclops and the Dusknoir to basically even out the prize trades that you would have effectively lost with the Dusclops and Dusknoir, just to help you get ahead in the game. And then continuing on with the Pokemon, I play one Lumineon V. So this Lumineon has the ability, when it comes into play from hand, I can search my deck for a supporter card for free, but that's only for the turn that it's placed from hand to bench. And then I play the Rotom V. So I play these two Vs at the same time. If you've played Pokemon, these are what you would call the early game utility Vs. Some builds play only one or the other, but for me, I play both because I wanted to be prepared for going first or going second. Lumineon is a great utility, one-off utility Pokemon for when you're going second, and the Rotom is great when you're going first, because Rotom has the ability, once per turn, I can draw 3 cards and then just end my turn. So after you set up your board, turn 1, you can just activate the instant charge ability and just draw 3 cards. And you basically set up for next turn with a bigger hand size. So next, I play one copy of Pheasantipity, which has the ability Flip the Script. So we're just playing it for that ability, which is during your opponent's turn, if one of your Pokemon ever get knocked out, during your turn, I can draw, during my turn, I can draw 3. So this essentially allows me to replenish resources that my opponent may have taken out from knocking any of my Pokemon out. And most of the time, they're going to target this out because they don't want to give me access to just a free draw 3 every turn they knock out. And then lastly, I play one copy of the Cleffa. So what this Cleffa does is for 0 energy, grasping draw up to draw cards until I have 7 in hand. So this essentially is, if I'm going second, I can, after I play out my field, I just and this is in the active, I can just grasping draw and recover my entire hand easy. So that's it for the Pokemon. I play about, let me count after this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 Pokemon. So that's pretty standard that I've seen. Like for the decks like this is about 18 to 21. So moving on to the supporters, I play 4 copies of the Arvin. So what Arvin does, and you can only activate supporters when you start the game out during officially turn 2. So the player goes second is allowed to activate supporters first. So what this supporter does, I can search my deck for an item and a Pokemon tool and add them to my hand. So this allows me to search out my key pieces, whether it be my Buddy Pfin to load up the board, my Ultra Ball to dig for my stage 1 or 2s, or even the rare candy to evolve the Pokemon with the stage 2 that I have in my hand at the time. So this allows you to just dig for your utility pieces, and for the tool of choice, you're going to be either searching the TM Evolution or the Forest Seal Stone early game, because the Forest Seal Stone gives your Pokemon the ability to search their deck one time per game, they can search. I can search my deck for any card I want. So I play 4 copies of the Arvin. Next, I play 2 copies of the Iono. So what Iono does is, upon playing it, both players shuffle their hand into the bottom of their deck, and then they draw cards equal to the number of prizes they have. So in the early games, this allows me to me and my opponents to refresh our hands and draw 6. The drawback of it is you give your opponent free, like if they burn their entire hand, you give them a free refresh. But also it's a double-edged sword, because if you time this right and they're ahead, you can potentially punish them if they go ahead in the prize trades, because if they get prizes 3 and below, they have a hand of like 7 to 10, you essentially minus 7 cards from their hand, because they have to put their entire hand to the bottom of the deck and only draw 3 to 4 cards. So this allows you to kind of hand loop, or in a sense mini hand rip your opponent and deny them resources. What I like to do oftentimes is, if my opponent searches for resources the previous turn that they need to advance their game state, I will just shotgun the Iono, just shuffle it back to the bottom, so they have to draw a fresh hand and dig for their resources again. Yes, they might just draw new resources to get them to the previously searched resources, but sometimes they'll just bottom deck their good cards and draw bricks. So that's why I like this card. It's essentially just there to hand rip them. Next, I play 1 copy of Boss's Order. So I get to, what Boss's Order does, I get to select a Pokemon from my opponent's bench and drag it to the active. So that's there to help me set up KOs, or just strand a Pokemon in the active where my opponent has to invest energy just to retreat it, or invest resources to get it out of the active spot in order for them to launch an attack on me. Next, I play 1 copy of the Professor Turo scenario, which allows me to just bounce an active Pokemon on my board to my hand, but I have to detach all the other like energy and items that are attached to this Pokemon. So this allows me to rescue them from being knocked out and just prevent them from taking free prizes. Next, I play 1 copy of Crispin. So this is the new supporter from Stellar Crown. What he does is I get to search my deck for up to 2 basic energies of different types. I reveal them to my opponent, then I can put 1 to my hand and then attach the other to one of my Pokemon however I choose. So this allows me to energy accelerate for the Dragapult in order to basically launch its attack turn 2 if I wanted to. And then lastly, I play 1 copy of the Briar. So this is another new supporter from Stellar Crown. So what she does is, if my opponent has exactly 2 prizes remaining, and so if they do, I can activate. If they have exactly 2 prizes remaining, I can activate this card. During my turn, if my opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out by damage dealt by my Terra Pokemon, so in the current rotation, the Scarlet Violet, we have the Terrestrial effect, and you'll know because it will actually say that in the text box describing this card. So this is a Terra Dragon Dragapult. So if the Terra Pokemon knocks out my opponent's Pokemon, I can take an additional prize. So this allows me to essentially like catch up, or even just win the game outright. Like, there were times when I was testing this deck when my opponent got to 2 prizes. He had 3 Pokemon easy to knock out. I played the Briar. He had 3 Pokemon that were easy for me to knock out. I played the Briar, and I knocked out all 3 and just took 6 prizes. Like that. This allows me to just catch up and just win really easy. And I like it because the restriction is your opponent has to be ahead and have only 2 prizes remaining. So this allows your opponent, it forces your opponent to think carefully if they predict on how they route their prize game, their prize trade game. So it's a good card in general. I suggest you play it if you're playing any Terra deck, but it's only a one of, because if you play more than one of this, it's a break. So you just need it for the time when your opponent has 2 prizes and you can just guarantee the knockouts. Next, we play for the items for Buddy Pfin. So what Buddy Pfin does is I get to search my deck for basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less and place them on the bench. Pretty self-explanatory. Next, I play 4 Ultra Ball, which is a discard 2, search any Pokemon. Then I play 2 Nest Ball, which allows me to bench any Pokemon from my deck and search my deck for any Pokemon and place them into the bench. Any basic Pokemon to be more accurate. Next, I play 4 Rare Candy. So what the Rare Candy does is, during my turn, if I already played a basic Pokemon in the previous turn and it has a stage 2 and I have that stage 2 in hand, I can play this and immediately evolve into the stage 2. So it's a free shortcut without having to go through the stage 1 to stage basic to stage 1 to stage 2 route. So I play 4 copies of the Rare Candy. Next, I play 2 copies of Super Rod, which allows me to shuffle back 3 of any combination, whether it be Pokemon or energy, from my discard pile into my deck. So this allows me to recur my energy and my Pokemon in order to essentially loot my resources and potentially close the game. Next, I play 1 copy of Palpad, which allows me to shuffle 2 supporters from my discard pile back into my deck. And you're going to mainly recycle either the Crispin, the Professor Turo scenario, the Boss's Order, or the Iono. Those are mainly your main targets. And in some cases, hedge cases, if you need the Briar back in the deck to launch a KO, you can shuffle it back. And then I play 1 copy of Earthen Vessel. So what Earthen Vessel does is I can play it, discard a card from my hand, and then search my deck for 2 basic energy. Then I play 1 Counter Catcher. So what Counter Catcher does is, if my opponent has more prizes than I do, I can activate it, which is I get to choose one of their bench Pokemon and drag it to the active. And then I play 1 copy of Unfair Stamp. So what Unfair Stamp does is, during my opponent's turn, if they knock out a Pokemon, I can play this. We both shuffle our hands into the deck, but my opponent draws 2 cards and I draw 5. And then for the tools, I play 1 copy of the Forest Sealed Stone. So what Forest Sealed Stone does is it can only be attached to V Pokemon, and that V Pokemon gains the ability Star Alchemy. So if they already have an ability, they gain basically a second ability on top of their inherent on-print ability. So what Star Alchemy does is, once per game, I can activate this V-Star power, which is Star Alchemy, which allows me to search my deck for any card and add it to my hand. And the best part is, unless it specifies I have to show it, if the card says I have to reveal it to my opponent, but in terms of searching, I have to. But in most cases, especially like this and the Pidgeot, I don't have to reveal it to my opponent, so my opponent doesn't know what I'm searching. They can infer based on my decision-making process, but most of the time, they have to guess. Next, I play 1 copy of TM Evolution, which allows me for 1 energy. My opponent, when I attach it to a Pokemon, it gains an additional attack called Evolution, which is for 1 energy, 1 colorless energy. So it can be any type. I can choose 2 Pokemon in my bench and evolve them. I can evolve them to the next stage after their current stage. So if it's a basic, I can evolve it to a stage 1. If it's a stage 1, I can jump it all the way to stage 2 from the deck. From the deck, by the way, so I could just search it from the deck and evolve on top of it. I don't have to have it in the next stage of my hand. And then lastly, 1 Defiance Belt. So if my opponent is ahead in prize, my attacking Pokemon deals an additional 30 damage. Just clean and simple. Like, the goal of this deck is you're gonna be playing from behind most of the time. So being able to take advantage of the Defiance Span and the Dust Noirs, you want to pick up KOs quickly to even out the trade the prize trade, and eventually overtake them, because you're not only spreading so much damage, but you're softening up so many targets that you're just easily just one-shotting with the Dragapult. And then lastly, for energy, I just play 3 Psychic and then 3 Fire. So I hope you guys like this, my very first Pokemon deck profile post channel reboot. So I will be showcasing this deck profile on PTCG Live when Stellar Crown is legal. So please keep an eye out for that. I am gonna showcase how that deck plays as a sort of part 2, because honestly I like Pokemon TCG because their online client is just so helpful. It allows me to just get in so many games, and even just allow me the chance to showcase how I would play the deck. So I hope you guys like this. Again, I hope you guys like this video. I will be doing more Pokemon videos in the near future, but this is just the first one of many. And I will be doing Pokemon matches via PTCG Live. If you guys want to see me actually play in person, please comment below, because that could be also a thing I can record at locals, but we'll see. So I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Stay on point, guys, and peace out.